Hey everybody, I'm Jack Reeder with Future Pastimes, and I'm the designer of the Moritani expansion, which is the third expansion for the 2019 edition of the classic game of Dune, published by Gale Force 9. In this video, I'm going to be talking about one of the variants in this expansion, and that is Homeworlds, but we're going to focus on a particular homeworld, and that would be Tupile. And Tupile is the homeworld for the CHOAM faction. So every homeworld, you're going to put your reserves on the homeworld planet token, and you're going to put that out in front of your shield. Now, I know in the past, a lot of people like to have their reserves behind their shield, but it's not really secret information. It's actually quite easy to just count the forces someone has on Arrakis or in the tanks, and then you know how many are in their reserves. So it was never meant to be secret information. So we just put these right out in front of the shield and actually pretty close to the board. It's a nice way to remind the players, too, that you can ship your forces to someone else's homeworld and attack them there. So it's nice to have that accessible. Every homeworld has an accompanying homeworld card that has a high threshold side and a low threshold side. And normally what happens is, for all of the other homeworlds, the high threshold side is another advantage that's going to help that faction out. But when they go to low threshold, they may incur a penalty. However, for CHOAM, it is reversed. Their penalty is actually while they're at high threshold, and if they manage to get down to low threshold, then they get an extra bonus. So let's take a look at what those effects are. When Tupile is filled with 11 or more of CHOAM's forces, then they're at high threshold, and the effect is that they may not discard worthless cards for spice, except using their advanced once per game Karama effect. So normally CHOAM can discard a worthless card and get 2 spice for it. They can still use those worthless cards for the special effects. So CHOAM has a number of special effects depending on what worthless card they're using, and that is unaffected by being at high threshold. But if they don't need that card and would rather get the spice, they're out of luck for as long as they have so many forces in their reserves. And this is really meant to encourage CHOAM to get into the action, get some forces onto Arrakis or someone else's homeworld so that they can then flip to the low threshold. Now, once they are down to 10 or fewer forces on Tupile, they flip to the low threshold, and now they're going to get an advantage. So once per faction, when on another homeworld, or if another faction is on Tupile, force that faction to tell you how much spice they have and the number of weapons or defenses that they hold. So it's a little bit like a mini audit. They're going to find out how much spice a faction has, which is sometimes very good to know, especially in advance. You'll know their capabilities of being able to spice dial. But even in basic, knowing how much spice somebody has can be very useful information. But also knowing how many weapons or defenses that they hold can be especially juicy for any faction. And CHOAM, with their 5-card hand of treachery cards, can usually pick up a weapon or defense. But knowing how many another faction has can help them to do the math, especially if they've already received a little bit of information. You've seen, for instance, the Harkonnen have been in a battle, and they had a snooper in that battle, and so then you ask them, how many defenses that you have? And they only say 1, then you know that they don't have a shield. They don't have no capability to stop a projectile weapon. So that can be very useful, and it can be a very good deterrent to keep people from attacking you on Tupile if they don't really want that information to be shared. So what is the once per faction? What does that mean? Just to clarify, it's not going to happen a lot because we're talking about being on each other's homeworlds. But let's say that on CHOAM's turn, they ship forces to Caladan, so they're going to attack the Atreides there. And then the Atreides goes after them in turn order, and they say, well, we're going to then ship some forces to Tupile and take you on there. CHOAM's only going to be able to do this audit once when you get down to the battle phase. So they don't have to worry about having this too much. In fact, nobody else has to really worry about it too much. And so it's not a really super great effect, and too bad for CHOAM. But again, it's probably more for the deterrence than anything else. But if it does happen, then you are. And sometimes you just want to send one of your forces to somebody else's homeworld, not because you're expecting to win that battle, but because you want to gather information. And that's really where this becomes a very effective tool. So they're encouraged to go get that information because it helps keep them at low threshold. The other bonus, of course, with low threshold is that your free revival is up by 1. Well, CHOAM doesn't have free revival, but when they're at low threshold, they do. They get 1 out for free. So that is a nice perk as well. And of course, CHOAM Charity is boosted by 1. This is only if you're actually collecting CHOAM Charity, so this has nothing to do with their normal charity advantage. They're not going to earn more because of that. So that's an important clarification you need to know. They're +1 CHOAM Charity. They're only going to get that if they need the spice. And remember, that extra spice always comes from the bank. It doesn't come from CHOAM. So if other players are collecting CHOAM Charity and they're getting a bonus spice because they're at low threshold, it's not going to eat into CHOAM's income. As with any faction, you have a number that you get to add to your dial when you are battling on your home world, and it's going to be a +2, whether CHOAM is at high or low threshold, so it's always going to be +2, and that is also the number of forces that CHOAM would lose in a laser gun shield explosion on Tupile for their undialed forces. Now, if you do attack Tupile and you win the battle there and have forces left over, you will become the occupier, and you will be the occupier Tupile until CHOAM ever gets rid of all of your forces there. So you're going to get a 2 spice income, whether it's basic or advanced, in the spice collection phase for occupying Tupile. Also, you and your ally increase your hand size by 1. Now, when you vacate Tupile, you have to discard down to your normal hand size if you did increase it. And then the other thing is when you're occupied is that CHOAM loses their low threshold advantage. So they have to have somebody on Tupile. They just don't want to have 11 or more forces. Otherwise, they do lose it and it flips back. So that is how that works. It's Tupile. Used to be a secret location that only the guild and CHOAM could find, and but now the cat is out of the bag. Other factions can make their way to Tupile to attack CHOAM, try to occupy them, increase their holdings. So that's it. If you have any other questions about Tupile, let me know in the comments. And if you've seen the CHOAM Homeworld in action, let me know your thoughts. Was it effective? Did it help encourage CHOAM to get into the game and into battles on Arrakis faster than normal? And any other interesting anecdotes, please share those with me as well. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.